Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Luzainul Hafi bin Sabarin, and I will be presenting about my mini project for the subject ECG263. So first is the water content determination by using air drying method. So here is my sampling location, which is in front of my house, and it provides soil and sample and testing ground for me to work out this mini project. First, I would have to clear out the area from the grass for me to able to extract the soil sample from the ground. So for the procedure, I must extract the soil sample from the sampling location. Next, we must divide the soil sample into 3 parts, and the apparatus being soil sample, metal tray, and the weighing balance. Next, we must also record the mass of the empty metal tray. Next, we must transfer the soil sample and the mass of the soil is recorded. Repeat this step for the remaining soil sample. Next is to spread the soil sample evenly on the metal tray and expose to the sunlight as air drying process and for 24 hours. Next is to record the mass of the dry soil with the metal tray. So for the next experiment is the particle density or the pygnometer method, and the apparatus is as follows, which is the soil sample, the 3 glass jar with cap, and weighing balance. Also, we must use water during this experiment. So for the procedure, we must first clean and dry the empty jars, and then we must record the weight of the empty jar as W1. This is jar 2, and this is jar 3 weight. And then we must take 200 gram of soil into the glass jar and record the weight as W2. So this is jar 2, and here is jar 3. And after that, we must fill the glass jar together with the soil with water and full and record as W3. Here is jar 2, and here is jar 3. After that, we must empty and clean the glass jar properly. Next is to fill the empty glass jar full with water and record as W4. Here is jar 2, and here is jar 3 as weight. Next experiment is particle size grading and texture, also known as dry sieving. So for the experiment, we have to need this apparatus, which is the sieve of 50 mm, 10 mm and 2 mm, soil sample, weighing balance, and tray. So for the procedure, we must record the weight of tray and dry soil. Next is we must sieve the soil sample through the 50 mm sieve and weight the soil sample retained and soil sample passing. Here is the soil sample retained, and here is the soil sample passing 15 mm. Next is to sieve the soil passing through 50 mm sieve with the 10 mm sieve, and the weight of the soil sample retained and soil sample passing are recorded. Here is the soil sample retained and the soil sample passing for the 10 mm sieve. Next is to sieve the soil sample passing 10 mm sieve with the 2 mm sieve. Then we must record the weight of the soil sample retained and the soil sample passing the 2 mm sieve. So here is the soil sample retained and the soil sample passing for the 2 mm sieve. Here is all of the final results. For the next experiment, which is the field density using the core cutter method, which has been learned during the class, and here is the apparatus, which is the steel container of similar size, 3 of them, and piece of wood and a mallet. So first, for the procedure, we must measure the volume of the steel container. Both the height and the diameter is recorded. So next, we must prepare the tools and equipment at the sampling location. We must also place the steel container on the ground for the preparation and carefully hammer the steel container into the ground using a mallet and a piece of wood. This type of hammering is recommended, as it would transfer the energy to the steel container through the piece of wood. For the next step, we must carefully extract the sample from the ground and trim off the remaining soil from the steel container, if any.
It's like walking through the sky where the stars come and go. It's the light within my reach, not as distant as it seemed. Dreams are moments, night is long, yet we linger in the past. Tell me, do you feel the same? I can take you far, far away, far enough for us to disappear. Should you feel a little scared, know that I'm still.
All of these steps is repeated with the other remaining steel containers.
Feel a bit surreal. Just see the stars run past you as you drift apart in the air. Like the leaves riding on the autumn breeze. Like the days gone too far for us to see. We move on.
For the next step, we must dry the soil using the air drying method extracted from the steel container. For the final experiment, we are carrying out a permeability test using the falling head test that is learned during the class. And here is the apparatus: 3 plastic bottles, soil sample, and weighing balance, and a stopwatch. So next, for the procedure, we must drill the plastic bottle at the bottom and measure the diameter of the bottle. Next is to mark the bottle with point H1, H2, H3 and H4, and measure the height from H1 to H2, H2 to H3 and H3 to H4. Next is to cut the top of the bottle and put 200 grams of soil sample and compact the soil at the bottom of the bottle.
I can take you far, far away.
Here is the process of filling the bottle with water to the top until the soil is fully saturated. Next is to top up the water until it reaches the H1 mark. This process may take a while to be succeed, as there is a hole at the bottom of the bottle that extracting the water through the bottle.
Like the leaves riding on.
Next is to record the time taken for the water to reach from H1 to H2, H2 to H3 and H3 to H4, and also repeat the steps for another 2 sets of soil sample. That is all from me. Thank you for watching, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.